In this video, we're going to talk about how the rich invest their money, not the version they teach in finance class, the version they use when they think no one is watching. There are two financial systems running at the same time in this country. One is the one you use. You earn money, it gets taxed, you invest what's left, and the government can see every dollar. The other system is invisible to most people. It operates in the British Virgin Islands, in Panama, in South Dakota, and in the hallways of Congress. And the people who use it are the same people who write the rules for yours. Between $21 and $32 trillion is sitting offshore in tax havens around the world right now. Not invested, not circulating, hidden. That is more money than the entire United States economy produces in a single year. And 80% of it, according to economists at UC Berkeley, has never been reported to any tax authority. That's not aggressive tax planning. That is criminal tax evasion at a scale that most people can't even visualize. Today, we are going to walk through three layers of this hidden financial system. The offshore shell company playbook that world leaders use, the congressional insider trading loop that has never once resulted in a prosecution, and the dark money pipeline that turns political power directly into personal wealth. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how the people who could fix this system are the ones protecting it, because they are the ones who benefit from it. Let's start with the foundation. In October of 2021, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists published what they called the Pandora Papers, 11.9 million leaked documents, 2.9 terabytes of data from 14 different offshore financial service providers. It was the biggest financial leak in history. What they found inside was a who's who of global power. 35 current and former world leaders, more than 330 politicians and public officials across 91 countries, 130 billionaires from the Forbes list. They were all hiding money in the same way. Through shell companies registered in places with no disclosure requirements, no taxes, and no questions asked. Here's the playbook. You are a powerful person, a president, a prime minister, a billionaire. You want to buy a $15 million mansion in California without your name attached to it, so you don't buy it yourself. You pay a law firm in Panama a few $1,000s to create a shell company registered in the British Virgin Islands. That company exists only on paper. It has no employees, no product, no revenue. But it has a name, and that name buys the house. Your name appears nowhere. That is exactly what the Pandora Papers showed King Abdullah II of Jordan doing. His advisors set up at least 3 dozen shell companies over a 22-year period. He used them to buy 14 homes worth over $106 million in the United States and the United Kingdom. One was a $23 million ocean view property in California, purchased through a British Virgin Islands company. No name, no trail, just paper, and the gut punch detail from the ICIJ investigation is this. The very people with the power to shut the system down are the ones using it. They investigated themselves and found nothing wrong. Here's where it gets closer to home. The Pandora Papers didn't just expose Caribbean islands and Swiss banks. They found that some of the biggest secrecy jurisdictions in the world are right here in the United States. South Dakota, Delaware, Nevada, Florida. American states have quietly built offshore-style trust systems that allow foreign money to flow in with almost zero disclosure. At least $1 billion in offshore assets was traced to U.S. trusts in those states alone. The Tax Justice Network estimates that $427 billion in tax revenue is lost globally every single year because of this system. That is $427 billion that does not go to schools, roads, hospitals, or Social Security. It goes to a law firm in Panama that charges $2,000 to make your name disappear. Now let's bring this back to the United States and talk about something that has been in plain sight for years: congressional stock trading. Because this is where the system gets almost comically transparent about what it is. In 2012, Congress passed something called the Stock Act, the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act. The name alone tells you everything. Before it passed, it was perfectly legal for a member of Congress to trade stocks based on information they gathered from classified briefings, private meetings with CEOs, and advanced knowledge of legislation that would move markets. The Stock Act was supposed to end that. It didn't. Here's what the data actually shows. In 2023 alone, members of Congress made approximately 11,000 stock trades. 105 members of Congress traded nearly $290 million in stocks in 2024. And according to analysis from the National Bureau of Economic Research, congressional leaders outperformed other lawmakers in investment gains by as much as 47%. Not the market, other lawmakers. The people at the top of the information chain beat everybody else. The Stock Act requires disclosure within 45 days. But no charges have ever been brought against a single sitting senator or representative under the act. Not one. The fine for a late disclosure is $200. That is less than a parking ticket in San Francisco. And for members trading hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time, it is basically a rounding error. The most documented example is the Pelosi portfolio. Nancy Pelosi's husband Paul, a venture capitalist, manages their family investments. In 2022, Paul Pelosi acquired more than $1 million in NVIDIA call options, a bet that NVIDIA's stock price would rise. Just weeks before Congress voted on the CHIPS Act, which pledged tens of billions of dollars in direct subsidies to the semiconductor industry. NVIDIA's stock surged. The call options printed money. Paul Pelosi also bought between $500,000 and $1 million in Tesla investments in December of 2020, roughly 1 month before President Biden announced the federal government would transition its entire vehicle fleet to electric vehicles, and before Congress passed more than $170 billion in EV subsidies. Over Nancy Pelosi's 37-year career in Congress, the family portfolio returned 16,930%. The S&P 500 returned 2,300% over the same period. She beat the entire stock market by more than 7 times. Paul Pelosi is described as a skilled investor. Maybe. But the timing of those trades, over and over again, lines up with legislation. His wife was directly involved in passing. When asked about it directly on CNN, Pelosi's response was 4 words. That's ridiculous. And then she changed the subject. And Pelosi is not alone. In March of 2023, during a national banking crisis, Congressman Jared Moskowitz's investment account sold between $65,000 and $150,000 in bank stocks. 2 days after he attended a private congressional briefing on the banking crisis, and just before those same stocks dropped nearly 20%. Congressman Dan Goldman sold shares of First Republic Bank days before it received a government bailout, avoiding significant losses as the stock collapsed. The system is not hiding this. It is right there in the public disclosures. It is just counting on you not to be paying attention. So we've seen how the wealthy hide assets offshore. We've seen how people in power use their position to trade on information the public doesn't have. Now let's talk about how those two things connect, through what is called dark money. Dark money is political spending by organizations that are legally not required to disclose where their money comes from. They operate as nonprofits, usually registered as 501c4 social welfare organizations. And under current law, they can spend unlimited amounts of money influencing elections without ever naming a single donor. In the 2024 federal election cycle, dark money hit a record $1.9 billion. That is $1.9 billion in political spending where the American public has no legal right to know who wrote the check. The main dark money groups aligned with Democratic and Republican congressional leadership spent more than $432 million combined, more than any previous election cycle. And the money doesn't just flow in one direction, it flows in a loop. A billionaire or corporation puts money into a dark money nonprofit. That nonprofit funds super PACs that elect friendly politicians. Those politicians write legislation that benefits the billionaire or corporation. The billionaire's net worth goes up, and some of that increase gets recycled back into the dark money system for the next cycle. It gets even more specific. Watchdog organizations have documented shell companies, companies with no employees, no products, no revenue, making massive political donations. In the 2023-2024 election cycle, a company called Ardley Impact Corp was incorporated in Delaware in October of 2023. It had no online presence, no record of any commercial activity. 3 months after it was created, it funneled $150,000 to political super PACs. Campaign finance watchdogs filed a complaint alleging it was a straw donor, a fake company designed to hide whoever actually wrote that check. This is the circle. Offshore shells hide personal wealth. Congressional trading turns political access into investment gains. Dark money shells fund the campaigns of the politicians who keep the system intact. And at every step, the people who could change the rules are the ones who benefit most from keeping them exactly as they are. The ICIJ director said it plainly after the Pandora Papers dropped. When we published the Panama Papers a few years ago, there was a lot of outcry. People said this was a system that needed to end. But we are now seeing the very people who could end the system themselves benefiting from it. So how do the rich invest their money when they think no one is watching? They build shell companies in Panama and the British Virgin Islands to buy assets without their names attached. They sit on congressional committees that oversee the industries they're actively trading in. And they fund the political system through untraceable dark money, channels that make sure the people who write the laws keep writing them in their favor. None of this requires a conspiracy. It doesn't require secret handshakes or smoke-filled rooms. It just requires a system where the people with the most power are also the people with the most to lose from transparency. And where the fines for getting caught are so small they are basically built into the cost of doing business. $21 trillion hidden offshore, 11,000 congressional stock trades in a single year, $1.9 billion in untraceable political spending, 0 prosecutions. That's not a broken system. That's a system working exactly as designed. for the people who designed it. Now I want to hear from you. Which part of this hits hardest? The offshore accounts, the congressional trading, or the dark money loop? Because every one of these deserves its own video. Drop it in the comments and let me know what you want us to go deeper on next. If this changed how you see where the money actually goes, share it with someone who needs to see it. We are Currency Theory, and we follow the money.